So, hey PJ, thanks for
Hi.
coming and talking. I know this has been like a long time in the works.
hmm
If you would like to introduce yourself and talk about kink and color and like all you do.
Yes, yes. Hi. Thank you for having me, first of all. Um, my name is PJ. I am a multidisciplinary artist and creative, but I also work in the intimacy space and field as well. And I have my own company that helps marginalized communities get what they need to get and create braver spaces for all subcultures. And it's called Kink and Color.
Yay. And I mean, it's probably like an obvious answer to this, but what made you decide to start this and like get confident in talking about kink and specifically geared towards people of color?
So I've always been like a people person, and I've always been like a social like justice advocate. And like ever since I was a kid, whenever anybody was like doing anything wrong to people that were different, I'd be like, hey, leave them alone. Even though like my little short ass wasn't gonna be doing nothing to nobody. But like I was just thinking about this the other day. Like I was like a part of this community where like they paired a regular, not regular, that's the wrong word. Like a student that's in that doesn't have special needs or other talent, like has other like challenges or when it comes to learning and stuff like that, like they would pair us with someone that did, like, so I would probably be paired with someone that was deaf. Like I actually was, her name was Summer, and it was so cool because every lunch we would have, like, I think it was like once a week or like something like that, where we actually got to like spend time with each other in elementary school to kind of bridge that connection and that gap with people who were different from you. And I love that. And because LA is dope. But that was like kind of the start of like, I never thought of it as something different when people were different. So going into that, like it kind of shaped the way that I moved about the world. So it's like if somebody was like, oh, I like this or I'm into this, I'll be like, okay, cool. I'm into this. That ain't my shit. I'm not rocking with it, but I appreciate you and I like you as a person, so it doesn't matter. And so I feel like because I've been in a lot of different spaces, um, it's kind of been like a meeting of the minds or an intersectional thing that was just always going to come. Like that was always like in the wings. And like, even though kink and BDSM was not necessarily something that I was originally interested in, like personally, I knew something of it, but I just got into it because someone said that I couldn't be dominant. Like literally, and I was like, okay, bet. Well, let's see if that's true. And then I was like, well, let me go to this dungeon that's like 10 minutes away from me and let me see what that is. Maybe it's whack, maybe it's cool, maybe it's weird, maybe it's not my thing for real. And I went and they taught us like the little ins and outs in a little brief 30-minute sesh, and we got to spank some ass and see all these really cool toys and understand what it was. And I was like, actually, I think I might like this. Let me see what we can do here. And 7 years later, 8 years later, I have my own company helping other marginalized communities get into this space and understand it and see that it is okay and it's cool, and you'll find your people here too, and you'll be good.
I love that. And just for people who don't know what kink means or BDSM, could you like explain like what that is?
Yeah, I think the easiest way is to just kind of be like, so BDSM is actually based around the acronym. Some people say yes and no, but I'm like, it's an acronym for a reason. Like, bondage, submission, sadism, masochism, dominance. There's six, and I feel like I'm forgetting one. Bondage, discipline, submission. No, bondage, discipline, dominance, submission, sadism and masochism. I was like, I have to, because the acronym is not accurate. It's like it should be BDDDSMMM. Uh, but but that's basically when you're adding a power exchange element to any kink activities or particular activities to it, basically. So if there's not really a power exchange or any of that, it's typically just kink, because kink is just a lot of like sexually derived activities that you kind of do with a partner, where you don't need to be like, I'm over you and you're under me and we're a slave and a master and all that. It doesn't need all that extra stuff. It's literally just like, hey, I like to role play. Let's role play. You know what I mean? But then if it becomes a role play where like you're literally like, uh, you're at home and like you have a master slave dynamic, then that changes it from kink to like BDSM or, things like that. And then there's fetish, where you just like a certain feel and type of something, and that is arousing in itself, and you need nothing else to get to that point. So there's like a lot of little, sorry if you hear my like my dishwasher going off. Can you hear that?
No.
Okay. Okay. I was like, because I'm
Like,
like, I
wait.
can hear it in my bag, my little but yeah, so it's basically like some activities don't inherently have to have a power dynamic within it. And that's how I define kink, as like it just being a kink activity. And then when it is a power dynamic and it goes with that acronym, that's when I define it as like BDSM. And though they can overlap a lot, there's like a very fine line between the two. That's what makes it easiest for me to understand.
No, that makes sense. That makes it easier for me to understand too, because I feel like you can Google it and, I feel like stuff has evolved too and changed and like intermixed and stuff. So it's always, I think, cool to hear from people who actively participate in it. Like, okay,
Yeah.
so there's all these nuances and layers. I
Yeah.
wanted to know, when you went to your first dungeon, were there any other people that look like you? And then if not, like, how did that make you feel? And if so, how did that make you feel?
Yes, there was. There was actually two people that are still in the scene. And that I'm still friends with one of them. The other one, they're very interesting. I think sometimes when you come into this space, you expect some sort of solidarity when you go in sometimes, and that's not always the case, that you'll like receive that. Like, especially for like, let's say for Black people, right? Like usually when we're in a space, we'll like do a head nod, or we'll do like a acknowledgement of some sort, even if it's very slight. And that's not the same even if you see some other Black people in the kink space. Some people are still struggling with their identity and what that looks like. And then some people are very clear on what that identity is, and it does not include someone that looks like them. So it's like you will get a gamut of people, but then most people, which is what I do find, there are so many beautiful melanated people that love this space and understand it and feel that sense of togetherness when you do come within that. But sometimes when you go to the spaces that are predominantly white, it's harder to make that connection with other people that look like you, because they may be going through their own identity crisis, or they may have a specific way of living that does not include connecting with someone that looks like them on purpose. So I don't really communicate with that person as much anymore. But I remember when I did first come out, I was like, oh wow. Like I was like, oh my gosh, there's like this really pretty person over here. And then there's this other person who was also their first time, and it was really cool. But yeah, they're not for us in that same way.
No, I feel
But the
that.
person, they're amazing. They're so dope. We actually ended up being platonic roommates for a very, very like for a few years, and they're still very active in the scene and teaching and doing amazing things as a human. So
That's incredible. And yeah, we all know, I think, those people in our communities, whether it's BDSM or, just the everyday life, we all know those people. Um,
yeah.
I wanted to know, so at least for myself, the interest of getting into like BDSM and kink and all that was because of my own trauma I faced.
Hmm.
Is that quite common, do you find? Or I know you specifically said earlier it was more so just like because someone told me I couldn't do it. I'm that person too. I'm like,
Mhm,
bet, like, I'm about to do it, you about to see. Do you find that to
mhm.
be very common that people who have, like, experienced some kind of trauma, like, they find their way into the BDSM, space? And if so, why do you think that is?
So this is like it's always it is a question that comes up a lot, particularly in so many different spaces with a lot of people that are trying to give a reason as to why people like doing what this they do. And that's why I preface that because of this reason. Um I don't think that I don't think that's true for a lot of people. I do think that there are some people that work through their trauma doing kink or BDSM activities in a healthy way. But I also do think that there are people that do it in a very non-healthy way. So it becomes a much deeper question. But there are people and articles and so many things written about this very subject because it is a point of contention, because a lot of people try to tell people that are interested in kink or BDSM or fetishism or whatever that there's something wrong with them, and it's because you were sexually abused as a child or you were bullied as a kid for being gay or all of this stuff. And it's like, no, no, some people are just kinky ass motherfuckers. Like some people just like doing interesting things in bed. I actually think it's more, I think I notice more people that are neurodivergent and like kind of in that space more than I would say that it's rooted in trauma. And but I do think that for some people, it is freeing. It is a catharsis, and rest in peace for Miss Velvet. Um, they committed suicide, like I think to sometime in COVID. I can't remember. It's like 2021 or 2022. But they were pro dom. I believe they were also trans. But I can't remember. But what they did is like they would get like white clients and they would have them read Audre Lorde or other like amazing black authors to them out loud, and that was the kink, and that was their, and that was their version of reclaiming or working through their trauma, but also like doing it in a way that was, to me, I felt that was super healthy, and I thought that was a fun and interesting way to add the cultural nuance to the way that you play. And I feel like a lot of times we only see that sanitized version of it. And like there's so many ways to incorporate kink and BDSM in your life where it doesn't have to be one extreme or the next. And so even if you are working through trauma, there are ways of doing that that are healthy. But it's not just using that as the tool to get that trauma like taken care of. You know what I mean? It's just an added benefit of you already doing the work on your own, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think you said that so beautifully, especially too, because my next question was going to be related to like, I think what also helps perpetuate those stereotypes is, films like 50 Shades of Grey or other movies where it's like we're seeing certain things and images. And because I know you're also an intimacy coordinator, I wanted to ask your opinion on, do you feel that we have really healthy representation on screen of kink and BDSM? And if so, could you name some of those projects? Because the only projects I know of, I'm kind of just like, this is why I was thinking it's mainly trauma based myself, because in this film or series, it's kind of like trauma. Like is the like
Yeah,
the leading root of it. It's not really as like, ooh, like sexy,
yeah,
like I like it. I feel like you end up liking it in those scenarios because of the trauma instead of
yeah,
just
I
maybe
see
being
that.
separate.
Yes. Now there are statistics, I believe, because there has been scientific research in regards to what you're saying. Now, I hate statistics in terms of like it confuses me as a neurodiverse individual. Like it's like, can you just clearly define what you're trying to say? Like in terms of like actual statistics, not like the stats that you could read, like 35% of the world is blah blah blah. It's like when they're like, if so and so had two things that had this and this and this, and then what is the, and I was like, no, I don't understand that. Brain is gone. But there are people that have actually done this and done the work to see that. And I can send over some links to where that is a place where if people want to learn more about where it does come from and how that can be a really interesting correlation. totally can do that. Um, I also understand where that stereotype can be perpetuated because you do have something like those movies that you mentioned, they're definitely terrible misrepresentations, even though, like, because it was a fan fiction, right? I believe that's what it came from Twilight, which was also, we all read Twilight. You know, so, but I think there are some, like one that I really enjoy is actually from South Korea on Netflix. It's called Love and Leashes.
Mhm.
And I thought it was really cool because especially when it comes to intimacy being shown on screen in South Korean like cinema and television, you don't see it in the same way that you would see it in like Europe or America or different other like places. And so typically um it's very chaste in what in the way that they represent things like that. I think Parasite was a very like, oh my gosh, like they're showing more than normal, like in terms of like y'all are really showing this person, these people doing this thing like here, okay, you know. So I think there is a shift in how we're seeing sexuality just shown on screen, but when it comes to specific like BDSM representation, I was like, they tackled this subject very, very well. Like, there were like a couple of things that were like, you know, but I mean, that to me was like a really cool way to introduce people that were into like master slave dynamic and like a pet play situation. And I was like, that's cool. It is hard to find, but I think we're moving towards a way to be able to show that in the art we create as intimacy coordinators and choreographers. But at the end of the day, like it's hard to do, like we're not the directors, like, you know, we're just the person that they're like, hey, this is what I want to do. And we can make suggestions and we can say here, but at the end of the day, it's the producer and the director and everybody that's going to be like, this is how we're going to do it. So sometimes, even as an intimacy coordinator, like you create this beautiful choreography that's very authentic, and they're like, we don't like it. I don't like the way it's reading. Can we just have her grab her and do this? And you know what I mean? So it's out of our hands. Now, you know, so we're only just like a cog in the wheel, but we do our best to try to represent things of this nature as authentically as possible. And it's lovely when you can have somebody that actually understands that and is like, no, I really do. Like, I think like one of my favorite, like even just intimate scenes that I've seen is in this show called Valeria, and it's a Spanish show, also on Netflix. And this person was like a wife that was like looking for spicing up in a relationship or something, or was just not happy in it. And it was interesting the way that they chose to choreograph this, or the way it came across, because you could see at the moment, like when she was intimate with her husband, there was lack of passion in just the little things that were done. And then like with this new person, the chemistry was insane. Like, and just being able to tell that stories with the bodies was beautiful. You know what I mean? And I think that there's so much room to do even just small shifts that can change an entire story. And you got to have a director that, and a writer and a producer that really wants to be authentic and not just like go for the shock value, which I feel like BDSM typically is in those spaces. And it's like, okay, yeah, we've seen the guy on the leash and da 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 da, but it's like people do all kind of different things that are still very cool to see. And like, I want to see more fire play. You know, I want to see more electro play. Like, I want to see more things that I don't get to see. And I only get to see people in ball gags and getting like strapped to a St. Andrew's cross, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no,
So
I was taking notes of like the shows. I was like, we about to put this on tonight because I haven't heard
yes.
of them. You know, I feel like I spend so much time trying to catch up on like the US stuff that I never go down to foreign films or whatever. So I'm like, ooh, these sound interesting though.
Yeah, I'm a foreign person in that like I worked at a like I used to do a lot of film festivals like as volunteer. So I saw a lot of music and a lot of like scores, a lot of films, a lot of TV shows, a lot of animation, a lot of different types of choreography at all of these festivals. And I'm like, wow, I don't know if these will ever get seen anywhere else but here, but I love it. So I'm like an indie girl at heart, even though I love mainstream too. I've just found some beautiful work within that. And when people are given the freedom to really play, sky's the limit and you can see it. And yeah, like, and so that's always been with me with whatever. And specifically because I'm in intimacy coordination, America is still kind of behind in how we represent that.
Yeah.
So, as opposed to a lot of other places that have been doing it for years and don't have the same connotations tied to it that we do. And it's, there's a lot of socioeconomical things that go into that and infrastructures as a whole. And, there's so much to dive in for that. But yeah, I think there's so many beautiful iterations and representations, but it's like sometimes you don't get to see them.
Yeah. Well, until you talk to someone like yourself who's like, look, there's this film and this film and this film, like there's all these like good representations, even though we're so saturated with, someone's there like, I don't know
Yeah.
about that. Like,
Yeah, no, but that's what it is too, right? It's like you wanna see, and part of our homework was to watch this. I was like, I've never had homework where I've had to like actually watch sex scenes or like intimate other scenes, like you know what I mean? And like, because we have to work in a lot of intimate other spaces. Like, if someone's gonna be in a nude in a bathtub scene, we have to good idea to have an intimacy coordinator on set for that, or if there's a sexual assault scene or abuse, like that type of thing, intimacy coordinator on that too. So it's like it kind of transcends to a lot of interesting towing the line. Yes, obviously, if there's going to be sex and nudity, but some people kind of put that in other places too. Like, I think it'd be really interesting to have an intimacy coordinator on some of these video games.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you do. You know what I mean? And like in animation, they talk about a lot of different types of things, and that can be triggering, and even on like as photo shoots with the models, like there's so many ways for us there to just be a person there to have your back and advocate for you in moments where you need it and you don't have voice or you're scared to have voice because of other reasons.
Yeah, no, totally. I feel like even though it was a major win last year with SAG kind of mandating it, I'm like, well,
Yeah.
it's still kind of like a luxury because a lot of indie
Mhm.
films like just don't budget for it because they don't care. They're like, we need X, Y, and Z. We don't need an intimacy coordinator because we've been doing
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z for however long, and they
Yeah.
don't want to like factor it in the budget. So
Yeah.
it's definitely sad, but hopefully down the line and as, people go and really try to make inclusive sets and safer sets, like it'll be like mandatory. Cause I know for myself, I always try to, I like to do my research, but I'm like, I can't do my job and do this other job and care about the actor in the way that I know this other person who's trained to do that can. So I'm always like, we have to budget and we have to figure
Yeah.
it out. I feel like there's always
Yeah.
to figure it out. So I'm always like,
Yeah.
to figure it out.
No, for sure. And I think that's what it is too. And it's because it's also like this weird stigma that we're going to come in and police people like hall monitors or something. And it's like, that's not the case. We're not here to like, oh, whoops, I just didn't, but okay. Um, um, because that's not we're there to help you tell the story in
Yeah.
the best way possible within the boundaries that are being set. Like that is all we're there for. Like you want to make it look cool and sexy and gritty or whatever, cool. That's what we're here to help you do. Sometimes we're not here to tell the actors how to act. Like you're an actor, you already know how to do your job. You're a director, you already know how to do your job. So let me do my job, which is making sure that everybody has what they need and then everything is that they need on set and that they're also respected. These are very vulnerable positions for a lot of people. And even if you're like a nudist or whatever, that still is like weird when you have a bunch of crew members like staring at you, not even just a punch, but like enough like a crew member staring at you while you're naked, like waiting for you to act like you're having sex with this person. Like, you know what I mean? It's an unnerving experience, even if you've done it many, many times, because it's not like real life at all. And a lot of people are like, oh, but I've had sex before. Yeah, but not like this character,
Yeah.
So it's like there's a lot. And then some directors are hesitant because they feel like you're gonna like dilute the film somehow, or like there's so many, and then it's like, but you also have to look out for the crew. Some of this stuff could be triggering for the crew. Some
Yeah.
people could be very religious on the crew, and then they're put in this position where they're seeing nude bodies or have a problem with, you know what I mean? So you just kind of have to be there to make sure everybody is as heard as they can be. And there's a lot of pushback with that. And it's like, don't you want to be that? If your parents or your family members were put in this position, wouldn't you want them to make sure that they were safe and protected as well?
Yeah.
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 Like that, this film that you're making is of the family of people. Like those are your people that you're gonna have with X amount of months. Even if whether you like them or not, this is the story y'all gonna be in this world for this amount of time.
Yeah.
Let's take care of each other while we're here and while we have the opportunity and the chance. So
Yeah, no, that's so true. I feel like when I was like learning, sorry, they're really noisy. The
all
world
good.
is
That's
coming
LA.
to an end
That's
as
LA.
we but I feel like even when I was, because I'm like self-taught everything. So
Mhm.
when I'm learning from directors and stuff, like those are things you hear. And it's like, I feel like that then that continues to perpetuate because you just don't unthink it. You're like, I shadowed so and so and they did it like this, and they won an Oscar or an Emmy or whatever, and they made it
Mhm.
work. So like, why should I change anything? And I feel like it's dangerous because even before the Me Too movements, and I guess post Me Too, because that whole organization fell apart. Like apparently sexual assault has stopped everywhere, so we don't need them anymore.
They started working like they do. Like they started, and they were like, oh, we don't have time to dedicate to this. And it's like, well,
It was a nice thought.
yeah, yeah, right.
But basically
Uh,
I feel like how I guess can or because you're in the position of like so many different intersections, queer and BDSM and kink. I guess how do you approach, or how do you feel directors and writers can help be co-advocates in being like, okay, let's work together on this and figure this out together, and it's not so much ego, or I think directors and writers, me being one, like you want to be protective over your work, and you don't necessarily want to be too collaborative because you can lose the vision, but then there comes a
yeah,
point where it's like you have to listen. And it's kind of nice to ask an actor too who's performing for you like
yeah,
what is cool, because some of them are numb to it, who've done it forever. But then others, it's like that could make or break your whole entire thing. And then it's like it wasn't worth it in the end. So I guess my whole question is, how can we better be advocates on both sides, do you feel? Like in the indie space, I mean, I mainly work in indie too. So I like mainly in the indie space because sad we can only do so much with them people. But in the
yeah,
indie
yeah.
space, like how can we better set the tone, I guess, for that?
I think honestly, a lot of it is just like creating more opportunities for people to understand each other. Because right now, you have different sides saying that it's all this or all that. And some people have had negative experiences with um, intimacy coordinators. And like you don't actually need to be certified to be an intimacy coordinator, right? And so like it's just basically some people are like, oh, I understand how to choreograph, so I'm gonna be one, or like I took like 3 classes and now I'm an intimacy coordinator, or like I'm already in this space, so that should be I can just jump in. It's not easy being one. Like like there's so much paperwork, like and there's so much like coordination that goes into it, like literally, like you have to send memos, you have to make sure the set is closed, you have to make sure hair, makeup, and wardrobe are on the same page and have the acts like the things needed for the actors. If and then if not, you have to bring that stuff to set. um and kits are expensive, like, you know what I mean? And then like you have to have calls with all of the people involved in the scene, and then while you're on set you then choreograph it, hopefully getting a rehearsal beforehand, hopefully having that in your contract, hopefully and then like then sometimes the director is like, I'm so busy, I don't have time for this, like, you know what I mean? And it's like, well, this is part of your movie. You know what I mean? Like, so you should take the time to see what is being done so that you know that you are meeting, like y'all are, they're helping your vision. And you want to work with people that are helping your vision, not just someone because they said that they are. And if you don't feel comfortable or confident, fire them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't keep that person on. Like, it would suck. It would suck. But at the end of the day, you want to, like, because there's like time frames that we have to do things. If actors need to know that they're doing XYZ, they need to it needs to be written in the breakdown. You know what I mean? It, like, if they're gonna do 48 hours beforehand, they need to have this and be able to decide blah blah blah. You know, the lawyers then have to come in, the agent then needs to be involved. Like, there's so many moving parts. And then we have to have those reports in and everything. Like, it's just so much, and people don't understand. It's not just me coming on to set, choreographing something, and that's done. It's so much before that, so much prep work, so much coordination, so many things in between that before we even get to the choreography. And so that's the fun part, the choreography, but then, like, um, and so it's things like that. And I would say that a lot of times is having more opportunities for people to have discussions on that, and just not from the same like four white women that are in the space. You know what I mean? Like, yes, you were veterans, you have started this whole thing, these communities, you're building that up, but there's so many people that are behind you, and I don't see you bringing them people with you on those shows or doing all of this stuff. So it's like, it's very, very hard to kind of like not just break in, but also like create more equity and inclusion and diversity in these films already. And then having an intimacy coordinator, there's nuance, there's cultural sensitivities that people may not get. And you need somebody that is a little bit more affiliated with those cultures to understand that. So
Yeah.
you got to have more conversations and what that looks like. Like, we're going to be gearing up to doing some workshops on that and stuff. Let's not say that. Let's not say that. Let's not say that. I will tell you what's coming up later offline. But yes.
No, I
But yeah.
love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
There needs to be more. I mean, I know of like I hope I said their name right. Cintima.
Yes.
Cintima, yes. And they kind of like just popped up. I mean, all those people have been doing the work for years, but it's like nice that they're around and then you all are around starting to do things, because I think the cultural sensitivity is really important. I think that I mean, at least for my company, it's like we rarely have more than one white person probably working with us at any given time. And it's like, thankfully, it's not like something I've had to say. It's like people see who I got and they're like, well, I know so-and-so, so let me hit them up, because they kind of know what they're walking into. And I think that that's kind of like you were saying, the mentality that hopefully would start being portrayed along these other sectors, because I've always felt some type of way when I hear a straight person choreographed any kind of gay queer scene,
Yeah.
because it baffles me. I'm like, I don't know, like, even if your cousin's gay, you ask them how they did it. Like, I don't think that that is enough. Like, I just
Oh,
don't
that's
think it's
true.
enough.
And
So
that's super
it's weird.
valid. Yeah, because I mean, people forget that you have to prep before you're gonna like insert into anybody's ass. Like, it's not just like, oh, let me just ram that shit in there. Some people like that. Most people don't. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a very small number of people that are just like, oh yeah, go ahead and spit's gonna work. Bro, what? Like, you know what I mean? It's
They
like,
were just watching porn, so
yes, exactly. And it's like, you can tell. And you can also tell when it was like a straight person, like, that's like, oh yes, like a man's perspective, a straight man's perspective of like how sex happens for the woman. No, we don't always come at the same time as the man. That doesn't happen very often.
I'm
So,
told
you know
it's
what I
rare.
mean?
Like, from my hetero friends, I'm told it's rare. So
Yeah, it doesn't. Like, I'm telling you, like, it's just such an interesting like thing, and you're just like, oh sure. Like, after like 2 seconds, they both no. No,
no.
there's like people that can, but like most people are not like that. Come on. We all know it takes about 12 minutes on average for women to come. So let's like, unless they're with a lesbian, because
Kind
do
of know what's up.
it better. Do it better. But
Yeah.
it's just it's super funny, and you can tell with how it's done. And you're like, all right, this is what I gotta work with. This, you want them to climax. All right, I'm not gonna say nothing, knowing that's not true, but here we go. You know?
What do I like? It's above my pay grade. Like, I tried.
Yeah, it's like, can't do it. Oh well, it is what it is. At least there's gonna be a condom there and like lube on the table,
Yeah,
hopefully at this point in
safe sex.
time.
Safe sex, yes. There we
Yeah.
go. So I mean, well, I'm excited about everything that you briefly mentioned in terms of what y'all are going to be doing with Kink and Color. But how are some ways people can follow you, connect with you, hire you, and get involved when you all announce all you guys are doing?
They can follow me on kingandcolor.com or at Kink and Color on all of the socials. And yeah, just reach out, DM me or send an email and I'll respond at some point. Typically give me a few days sometimes. But we're building our team. So hopefully things will be a lot more like smoother. But I am I love collaborating with people. I love talking to people. I love helping people find where they're trying to go. And I have books that help people on that journey a lot easier because we need more books that are geared towards people that we're trying to serve. So yeah. Yeah. King and Color is where you find me.
Yay! Thank you so much, PJ. It's telling me we have less than a minute, so we did it. We got this
We
done.
did it. We got it.
Yes. And the thumbs up thing. Did you see the little bubble pop up? That was funny.
Oh. Oh
And
yeah.
then you have five.
Yeah, now I'm on fire.
I
Fire.
love it. Oh my gosh. But thank you again for your time. I'm gonna text you and yay,
Yes.
we did
Yes. And when you're settled, if it's before you leave, let's grab a bite or something.
please. Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Bye. Have a great
Bye.
one.